Welcome to GFN Gaming. I'm Russ, and in today's game we have the Dark Elf Raiders trying to make flesh slaves out of the alien hives who are honestly not about that life. This game is going to play a little bit like a how to play, rules will be explained, so if you are new to the game you should be able to pick up the fundamentals during this bat rep. Grimdark Future Firefight is a skirmish-based miniatures agnostic game with evolving rules that are available for free and fit on one page. We'll be playing the Battle of Wits style game, which has 6 objectives placed by the players rolling off to decide who places first. In this game mode, players have 3 active objective cards at any one time with unique tasks on them that award a varying amount of victory points. They are drawn at the start of the turn and scored at the end, with players having the option to discard 1 card if they scored one also, redrawing to always have 3 in play. As always, players roll off at the start, the winner chooses a deployment zone and players then alternate in placing a unit, starting with the winner of the roll-off, and the player that won the roll-off also starts the game. In this game, both players have units that can perform actions in the deployment. The Alien Hive have Soul Snatchers that have a scout rule which allows them to deploy and then instantly make a 12-inch move ignoring terrain. And the Dark Elf Raiders have the Shadow Warriors that have the ambush rule, so can appear anywhere on the board more than 9 inches away from an enemy unit. However, they get Shadow, which means instead of 9 inches away, they can actually deploy up to 1 inch away from enemy units. Everyone's second favourite space gribblies right after the bike flying, child thieving, phone bill running upping extraterrestrial that captured our hearts in 1982. Yes, it's the Alien Hives, and leading their 300-point list on the nose is a Prime Warrior. Armed with 2 slashing blades, this monster is pumping out 8 attacks at AP1 with rending. Checking out the biggest gun in the armory is a Hive Warrior with Barb Gun and Razor Whip. That's good shooting, and the Poison Whip makes him pretty lethal in combat also with the poison, and he's got Blast on that big gun for the big groups. You've already seen their scouting shenanigans. There are 2 Soul Snatchers armed with Piercing Claws, which are 3 attacks each at AP1 with rending, and they're fast with Strider, so they're going to be zipping around. Finishing off this list are 3 Grebbling Little Grebblers, 3 Shooter Grunts, all armed with Bio Borers and Razor Claws. 5/5, they're okay, but honestly, they're just there to take objectives and be an annoyance. That's the Alien Hive, so let's have a look at 300 points of Dark Elf Raiders. Leading the Dark Elf Raiders will be a Dark Lord. Decent stat line of 3/4 with tough 3, armed with a blast pistol for some AP4 goodness, a close combat weapon and a succubus, meaning enemies get a -1 to hit him in combat. Next up we have a Nightmare, just the one, a singular Cold Sweat Nightmare, armed with an energy sword, 3 attacks, AP1 rending. He's a bit of a melee beatstick. Next up we have 2 Shadow Warriors. You've already seen their Shadow Ambush rule. They're both armed with close combat weapons at 2 attacks and poison, and a Dark Blast range attack. I love these models, so it's great to see them getting some play. Lastly, there are 3 warriors in this 300-point Dark Elf Raider list. 2 armed with barb rifles, which are poison, and the last is armed with a blast rifle for a bit of AP goodness. Those are the teams, so let's get into the game. As mentioned before, all of the rules we're using today are free, completely free, and available to download at OnePageRules' website, along with one of the best web-based army builder tools. It's great fun and leaves you with a great print-off if you so wish that fits on one page with your unit abilities, stats, and any special rules shown and explained. It's such an easy system to get to grips with and translates into all of their games. I guarantee you have some units that are no longer usable in either 40k or Kill Team, and this game is a great way to get them out onto the table once more.
A raiding party of Dark Elves emerges from the webway in a small system on the fringes of the Bektar region of space. It's been an age since they were last here, looking to fill the bellies of their ships with fresh meat. As they land and explore the ruins, there is a taint in the air, an unmistakable smell, almost. Alien hives. Too late they recognize their danger. Alien hives pour from ruins, and soon the raiders are on the defensive.
As we start the first turn, as per the Battle of Wits rules, both players will draw a hand of 3 cards face up. However, you could play these in secret. The elves get Keep at Bay, Seize 3, and Fire at Will.
Poor guy.
These are in play until any objective on the card is met, or they get discarded. Alien Hives get In the Trenches, Seize 4, and Seize 6. Both of those objectives are within easy reach. When they activate, units have an option of one of 4 actions. Hold, which is no movement but they can shoot, Advance, a 6-inch move with shooting, Rush, a 12-inch move with no shooting, or Charge, a 12-inch move into melee. Once in melee, they can strike in combat. This Soul Snatcher is charging into the Shadow Warrior on this terrain piece to fight in combat. Charging models move into base contact or as close as they can get to the target and can strike with all of their weapons. When taking a test or rolling attack dice, your quality stat is what you're looking to hit. The Soul Snatcher has 3 attacks and a quality of 3, so needing 3 ups. All 3 hit, and so the Shadow Warrior rolls 3 defense dice, 1 for each hit that went through. Defense is a separate stat, and for the Shadow Warrior this is 5+. However, the Soul Snatcher's weapons also include AP of 1, which modifies the defense die by 1. So instead of 5+, the Shadow Warrior now needs 6s to pass. Making just 1, so the 2 hits go through, dealing 2 wounds on the unit. Whenever a model is brought to 0 remaining wounds, place 1 marker next to it for each wound inflicted that took it to 0 remaining wounds and roll 1 die. You add the number of markers to the result, and on a 6+, the unit is knocked out and removed from play. On a 2 to 5, the model is just stunned and is placed on its side to show this. For example, the Shadow Warrior has 1 wound, it saved 1 of the 3 hits from the Soul Snatcher, so took 2 wounds, it gets 2 markers and the die is rolled. The total of the die is then added to the markers, getting a total of 5, 3 on the die and 2 markers, so the result is 5 just stunned. Once all of the attacks, damage and wounds are allocated for the attacker, the defender may choose to strike back, and if a unit is destroyed, the other unit may move up to 3 inches for a consolidated move, or else the charging unit must move back 1 inch. Over to the Dark Elf Raiders now, and the warrior with blast rifle is going to move out and target the Soul Snatcher in their lines. Shooting is just the same as melee, it's a roll based on the quality, so it's a 4 up for this warrior, 2 attack getting 1 hit. It's AP 4 but a 6 will always succeed, so it's a 6 up save which is failed. +1 to the injury roll and it's a 4, so it's just stunned. When a model is stunned, it remains so until the end of its next activation. Stunned models fail morale automatically and cannot move. If it takes any hits from shooting or is charged again while it's stunned, it's knocked out. The stunned Soul Snatcher activates to remove the stunned status, and the Dark Lord rushes onto Objective 3. As he does, the Prime Warrior moves to claim Objective 4. Objectives are scored at the end of the round and are held if only your units are within 2 inches of the objective. This Shadow Warrior activates to remove the stun status, and then the big gunner reshuffles around and is going to shoot right at him. The Shadow Warrior has stealth, meaning it's a -1 to hit with shooting, so the Hive Warrior is going to need a 5 and fails with a 3. The next Shadow Warrior activates now and is going to move forward and target the Prime with his Dark Blast. 18-inch range, 2 attacks at AP 1 with a quality of 3, so let's see if it can hit. Both attacks hit at AP 1, so 5 up saves and makes none of them. The Prime is tough 6, so basically has 6 wounds, now down to 4. Looking to shoot back at the Shadow Warrior, one of the shooter grunts is going to move and fire, forgetting that with that stealth it's still going to be a -1 to hit, so they're going to need 6s. 2 shots though, let's see if it gets anything. And that's nothing. Another one of the Dark Elf Raider Warriors moves forward to try and take out that Gene Stealer that's still nestled in their lines. Just 1 shot with the Barb Rifle, any 6s will become 3 hits with poison. Needing 4s, and that's a failed hit. Looking to get around the stealth rule, another of the shooter grunts is going to target the Shadow Warrior, this time charging to strike in melee. It's severely outclassed in combat, but it's 1 attack, needing 5s. It's a fail, and the Shadow Warrior is going to strike back, but also fail, so no kills. After the first time a unit fights in combat, they become fatigued until the end of the round. Whilst fatigued, they will only hit on 6s in melee. The last of the Dark Elf Warriors moves forward while staying on Objective 2 to shoot at the Soul Snatcher. Well within range, needing a 4, and it's a fail on a 2. Last activation for the alien hives, and this shooter grunt is just going to move onto objective 6. It's one of their objectives, and the last nightmare is going to strike, charging into the gene stealer, looking to take it out in melee. 3 attacks at quality 3 with AP 1 and rending, which means those 2 6s become AP 4. Fails both saves, so it's going to go to an injury with +3, and on a 5 that becomes 8, so he's taken out of action. First blood to the Dark Elf Raiders, but killing in melee is not one of their objectives. The death of the Soul Snatcher marks the end of the first turn, so let's have a look at what's happened in that first turn and where the scores are. The Dark Elves have pushed forward the furthest and killed the most, but let's have a look at the objectives for each team, starting with the Dark Elf Raiders. Keep at Bay can't be scored in turn 1, and they didn't get any ranged kills at all, so nothing for fire at will. They did seize objective 3, so 1 victory point. Seeing the alien hives moving forward, they discard Keep at Bay. It's a better showing for the alien hives, no melee kills, so nothing for in the trenches. However, they have secured both objectives 4 and 6, so we'll be getting 2 victory points at the end of the turn for an early 1 victory point lead going into turn 2. They're also not discarding in the trenches because melee's coming. We're into turn 2 now, so we're going to draw new cards starting with the Dark Elves, and they get Hold 2 and Assassinate. Moving over to the Alien Hives, and they draw Tactical Precision and Show No Mercy. Turn 2 doesn't have a roll-off and instead starts with the player that finished first in the previous round. That was Alien Hives, so they take the first activation. Looking at the new objectives, and only the Prime can possibly score Show No Mercy, which involves winning combat by 3 or more wounds, so he's going to charge into the Shadow Warrior and fight. Killing him would also incidentally start the tally for In the Trenches. The Prime is a monster melee unit with 8 attacks. Hitting on 4s, that ends up as a monster 6 hits. The 2 6s would technically be rending, but it's all the same save for the Shadow Warrior, making just 1. With 5 wounds going through, the injury roll will automatically take the Dark Elf out on a 1+, and the Prime wins combat by 5, which is just 1 shy of the 2 victory point target for Show No Mercy, but at least he gets the 1 victory point target of 3 wounds or more. It also starts a tally for In the Trenches. 1 kill in melee is 1 victory point, so that's in the bag, and 2 more will gain 2 victory points instead. When scoring, you only score 1 of the objectives on the cards, not both. The Prime then consolidates onto objective 3 before the Dark Lord activates, shooting him with his blast pistol. As far as I know, there isn't a lot of multiple damage weapons in Firefight, so you need to dedicate a lot of fire to kill tough models. Dark Lord hits on a 3, getting 1 hit going through, and at AP 4 it needs a 6-up save, and the Prime makes it, so no wounds. Looking to score a second kill for In the Trenches, this Soul Snatcher is going to activate and charge into this Shadow Warrior looking to fight in combat. 3 attacks from the Soul Snatcher, hitting on 3s at AP 1 with 6s being rending. Everything hits, so needing 6-up saves, making 1. The wound roll has a +4, and on a 5, making it 9, he's taken out of action. And now they are just 1 more melee kill away from 2 victory points for Into the Trenches. Another one of the Dark Elf Raiders is going to move to get line of sight on the Prime Warrior to try and whittle down the last remaining 4 wounds. Barb Rifle, hitting on 4s with 6s being 3 hits. It is a hit, but the 4-up save is made, no damage. Back to the Alien Hives, and the Hive Warrior with Barb Gun is going to lope forward to target the Nightmare, looking to take it out of action before it can charge into the Prime Warrior. The Barb Gun is better equipped to take out groups, but it's still worth a shot. 1 attack, hitting on 4s, and it's a 1. The shot flies wildly past the Nightmare as the blaster-wielding warrior moves onto objective 1 and fires at the Prime Warrior. 2 attacks from the blast rifle, hitting on 4s at AP 4. Both hit, it's going to be a 6-up save, and 1 is made, so that's another wound down on the Prime. Looking to press into the Dark Elves' lines, a shooter grunt is going to charge into the blaster-wielding warrior and fight in combat. Hopefully, it can survive and stay on objective 1. 1 attack, hitting on 5s, and it's a miss on a 1, and the blaster guy is going to fight back and hits on a 5. 5-up save is failed, so it's going to go to the injury roll, and he's just stunned. There's nothing in the core rules that state stun models don't count towards objectives, so objective 1 would remain contested by this stunned shooter grub. However, there is a fun mechanic where you can actually choose to push models when you stun them. On a 4+, you can move them 2 inches in any direction, which would be outside the objective. However, the Dark Elves rolled a 2, so the model's not pushed. Looking to take out the Prime, the Nightmare is going to charge into him and attack in combat. 3 attacks, so it's got a chance to take those last 3 wounds. The Prime is fatigued also, so will be hitting back on 6s only, so good chance he at least survives. The Nightmare makes 2 hits, 1 at AP 4, so a 6-up save, failed, and a 5-up save for the other one. And it's also failed, down to 1 wound left, and it's gonna strike back. As the Prime has fought already, it needs 6s to hit as it's fatigued. It gets 1, but it's saved on a 6 from the Nightmare. None of the units were killed in combat, so the charging unit moves back an inch to free it up for shooting and instantly gets charged by one of the shooter grunts, looking for that one last kill for in the trenches. Even fresh, the shooter grunt is looking for 5s and it misses. 6s back from the Nightmare and also misses, stalemate, and then the shooter grunt moves back an inch. It's a lovely mechanic designed for fun, so none of your units can get clogged down in melee. Last Dark Elf Warrior activates, trying to clip the last wound off the Prime. 1 shot hitting on 4s, but a 6 with poison will be 3 hits, and it's a miss on a 3. It's unclear why, but the shooter grub is going to charge into the Dark Lord. It's a little ill-advised, they are severely outmatched, and it won't be able to kill it for in the trenches, but this is what happens. The shooter grub has 1 attack on a 5 and misses. The Dark Lord strikes back needing 3s, getting 2 hits. 5-up saves are both failed, so a +2 to the wound roll, and on the roll of a 5, he is knocked out and taken out of play. We all kind of saw it coming. The Dark Lord then takes his consolidation move to make sure he's firmly on objective 3 to contest it. And with that, it's the end of turn 2, so let's have a quick recap of what's happened. The battle seems to be focused on the right flank and there's been some death, mainly on the Dark Elf Raiders side, but let's have a look at their objectives. They got it down to 1 wound, but the only hero model still lives, so they don't get assassinate, but they did hold 2 for 2 victory points. They got 1 kill, but not in range, so they don't get fire at will. Alien Hives get 1 victory point for in the trenches and 1 for show no mercy, but don't control 3 objectives, so won't score tactical precision. Which means the scores as we move into turn 3 are 3 to the Dark Elf Raiders and 4 to the Alien Hives, just maintaining that 1-point lead. At the start of turn 3 now, and the Dark Elf Raiders draw 1 more card, getting Seize 1, which looks very doable, and then the Alien Hives draw 2, getting Hold 1 and move out. There was a bit of a mix-up here, and with the death of the shooter grunt, we played as if the Dark Elves had the last activation in turn 2, so we accidentally give Alien Hives the first activation in turn 3, and the heavily injured Prime charges into the Dark Lord to fight in melee. The Dark Elf is -1 to hit with dodge, so 8 attacks looking for 5s, and it's only 1. It's rending, so AP 4, and he saves on a 6. He is going to fight back, getting 2 hits, no AP, so 4-up save, and he makes 1. It's going to take him down to 0 wounds, but on that, he's just stunned. It was tense for a moment for the Dark Lord, but that dodge ability really saved him. Slowly lowering his blast pistol, the Dark Lord fires into the Prime Warrior at point-blank range with his blast pistol. Both shots hit and the Prime is knocked out and taken out of play immediately. And that'll be 1 victory point for Assassinate for the Dark Elves. A shooter grub recovers from being stunned as a Dark Elf Warrior with blast rifle repositions and fires point blank. 2 shots with the blast rifle hitting on 4s. And unfortunately both miss, so he's gonna live. The Soul Snatcher activates and hops onto objective 5, looking to score the 3rd objective for tactical precision. Looking to clear the shooter grunt off objective 1 so they can score Seize 1, this Dark Elf Warrior moves and shoots with his barb rifle. 1 shot, hitting on 4s, and he gets a hit. It's a 5-up save, and it's made, so he's gonna stay. The Hive Warrior with barb gun moves forward to target the blast rifle on objective 1 and fires. 1 shot needing 4s and he hits with a 6. It's AP 1, so it's going to be a 6-up save, which is failed, but he's just stunned. Looking to clear the objective and finally score Seize 1, the Nightmare is going to charge into the shooter grunt and fight in combat. 3 attacks, hitting on 3s with AP 1. Hits all 3 times. 1 is rending, but it's going to be a 6-up save for the grunt anyway. With 3 wound markers on it, the 4 becomes a 7, so he is knocked out and removed from play. With how the Nightmare has positioned itself, it's now impossible for any charging model to get within 2 inches of Objective 1, so it looks like they've secured it unless they can kill the Nightmare. And it has to happen in combat so that they can consolidate onto Objective 1, so that's what's going to happen. Shoot a grunt into the Nightmare. Fails to hit, but nothing comes back, so it's a stalemate. The shooter grunt then has to move back an inch, and then the last Dark Elf warrior moves out to target the Soul Snatcher with his barb rifle. 1 attack needing 4s, and it hits on a 5. It's gonna be a 4-up save, and it's failed on a 2. On a roll of a 6, it is now taken out of action and removed from play. And with that last kill is the end of turn 3, so let's get a quick recap of what's happened. The alien hives have been pressing the attack on the Dark Elves but have suffered because of it. Let's have a look at the objective cards, starting with the Dark Elf Raiders. They just managed to seize Objective 1, they assassinated the Prime, and they scored 2 kills at range, scoring 3 victory points in total, getting a clean sweep on their cards. The Alien Hives failed to hold Objective 1, and with the death of this Soul Snatcher failed to score 3 objectives for tactical precision, so they're going to discard it, but do get 1 victory point for move out. The Alien Hives have now been brought to below half strength, which is just the total number of models they started the game with, so each remaining operative is going to have to take a morale test, which is just a test against their quality stat to see if they pass morale. Any stunned models at this stage would automatically fail this check and flee the battle. We start with the shooter grunt, which needs a 5 and gets a 3, so flees the battle, leaving 1 unit remaining for the alien hives, the Hive Warrior. This unit has the fearless keyword, giving it a +1 to morale checks, so needs a 3-up and makes it. It's not looking great for the alien hives as we move into the last turn. It's the start of turn 4, so the Dark Elves are going to draw some new cards, getting outmaneuvered, hold 5 and seize 6, and the Alien Hives get changing priority, rolling Objective 4 and hold 3. The Hive Warrior can't stop hold 5 or seize 6, and it can't score hold 3 or hold 1 and already has Objective 4, so it's going to charge into the Nightmare, looking to deny the Dark Elves outmaneuver, which calls for no enemy units to be within 6 inches of the center of the board. It's got 3 attacks in combat with its Razor Whip with poison, so it's no slouch here. Hitting on 4s though, it only gets the 1, and the save is made. He's going to strike back now, 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting 2 at AP 1, so that's going to be 5-up saves. 1 is made, so that's 1 wound down. Tough 3 though, so it's got 2 wounds remaining. A Dark Elf Warrior is going to move onto Objective 5. They can't hold it, but they might as well claim it, and the Dark Lord goes to seize Objective 6. The Dark Elf Warrior with Blaster readies from being stunned, and the last Dark Elf Warrior moves to take a pot shot at the gunner with its barb rifle, 1 attack, needing 4s, and it misses with a 3. Last activation of the game and a last-ditch attempt to score outmaneuver, the Nightmare is going to charge into the Hive Warrior and attack. Both are fatigued, so both are going to need 6s to hit. Gets 1 hit and the save is failed, return strikes, non-hit, so the combat ends. The Nightmare moves back out of combat from the Hive Warrior, unable to shift it. That's the end of the game. Let's have a quick recap of the last turn. And let's have a look at the cards drawn. They don't get outmaneuvered because of this warrior staying within 6 inches of the center. Hold 5 couldn't have been scored, but they do get a victory point for seize 6. Taking their score up to 8, let's have a look at the alien hives. Unfortunately, they didn't hold 1. They did get the Objective 4 for changing priority for 1 victory point, and of course they didn't get hold 3, so their final score is 6 victory points. So despite the brutal turn 3, it's relatively close at the end of the game. Dark Elf Raiders win 8 victory points to 6. Thank you so much if you've made it this far to the end of the game. If you're interested in OnePageRules, make sure to check out their website. All the rules are free and it's just such a great game system. A huge thank you to my patrons who help the videos coming out, and I'll see you in the next one.